So when we get to day 14 plus, right, which is just 2 weeks in with no power, no water, no sewage, no nothing. This is where it gets serious. This is where there is going to be wildlife hunted, right? So where we were talking about, this is after a week of all that, right? So now you've got a situation where everybody who had an air rifle has already used it and shot everything that they could find with the pellets they had. Everybody who had a fishing rod in their attic, in their garage, found a fishing rod, was straight in there, right? So there's not going to be many fish left, because don't forget, we were talking about your fishing lake where you'd normally be like 5 people down there on an average day. Now you go down there and there's like 60, 70 people in the same lake. Those fish in that lake are not going to last very long. So by 2 weeks of people, well, not 2 weeks, but by a good 10 days of like loads of people going down there all the time, things like wildlife are going to start to become less and less, because of course every time somebody shoots at wildlife, it's going to scare them off. And the more people that are trying to shoot wildlife, the more wildlife is running away, right? It's just going to be more difficult for you. So that's going to start becoming a problem even by week 2. Hospitals at this point are probably just going to close. So many staff members won't be turning up to work. Yeah, so many systems won't be able to operate. So many bandages and medications won't be there in supply or in stock. What's the point in going to hospital when you can't help anybody? Car gas empty, so those that were using their cars to keep their engine running on tick over on the driveway to try and keep their things charged up, to be listening to the radio and these other things that people have been doing with their, you know, you can buy obviously the car cigarette lighter inserts for the USB. That comes with my sigmaprepper e-harvesting kit, which I'll be doing a demonstration of soon on a video. But that includes one of those. So those people that have been using things like their USB power out of their car, keeping their car engines running on tick over on the driveway, most of their car gas tanks are going to be empty by now after 2 weeks, even just keeping it running on tick over on the drive on idle. So this far down the line. Hey guys, I'll have to rewatch later on. Sorry I'm late. Great to see you, TD Monkey Pickle. Thanks for being here, my man. But you know there's no such thing as late. You got here exactly when you intended on getting here. But I know YouTube doesn't seem to be sending any notifications out to anybody on sigmaprepper because it's a new channel. So do hit the all notifications bell. That may help if you haven't already. So the car gas, the people's car gas tanks are going to start being empty on day 14. Which is why you're better off. You know, you can get a very simple charge controller, solar charge controller, just a couple of 100 watt, just as flexible 100 watt solar panel even. Flim it on your roof of your car, crocodile clips onto your car battery, yeah? With a cheap charge controller, at least, if nothing else. Cheap car charge controller, cheap 100 watt solar panel on your roof of your car, and then just put the wires going under the hood, connected to your battery, and then while your car's sitting there, it's just recharging all the time. You don't have to keep your engine on idle using your fuel, yeah, while you're charging your devices from the car battery. But if you try charging your devices from your car battery without it running, you know, without the engine running, that will just drain and drain and drain into the point where you won't even be able to start the car to recharge the battery. So I strongly recommend at least a 100 watt solar panel, yeah, with a cheap charge controller that you can get with a couple of crocodile clips you can just put on a deep cycle battery. If all you've got is your car battery, do it. Crocodile clips on a car battery, 100 watt solar panel on your roof of your car, right? Leave it on the driveway all day, and you can just leave your things in the car charging without the engine running, and it won't be draining the car battery. So bear that in mind, right? So the car gas tanks are going to be emptied by day 14. So there goes your recharging your flashlights and your mobile phones if that's what you were doing. So your allotments and your gardens, do you call these community gardens? I think you call them in the States. And the community gardens and things like people's allotments here in the UK, where people rent a small amount of land, slightly rurally, where they can grow their vegetation, they can grow their vegetables and things, like community gardens. So those are going to have been pretty well raided by now. Daily survival confirming, thank you, honey. Community gardens. And then you've got the rubbish piling up, because don't forget, this is 2 weeks of no rubbish collection. 2 weeks of no rubbish collection. So you're going to start having rubbish piling up. And you're going to have rubbish as well, because people have been doing makeshift repairs where they've had windows broken, where people have been breaking in and things like this, right? And some of the violent things that have been happening is also going to, you know, cause a cascade effect on that rubbish piling up. And as a result, you got rodents and wildlife are going to start causing a problem. You're going to have bears who are going to start getting hungry or come in wandering through. Especially if you've got things like lockdowns as well. Don't forget, from a few last week, we could still be in a martial law. Yeah, martial law martial law lockdown scenario still. Yeah, because of the crime rates and that. But then what does that mean then? People are just going to be stuck in their home because they're of starvation? Don't forget the rule of threes, yeah? 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, right? 3 days without water, and it's 3 weeks without food. So this is day 14, so there's going to be people popping off already. Hence, the destruction is going to be widespread. This is going to be everywhere. There's no way you're not going to be seeing bodies on the floor. You're going to see it. I saw it in India. When I went to India and I was traveling around, you see bodies on the side of the road. No messing around. Bangladesh was the same. Yeah. Life is cheap there. So when you experience places like Bangladesh, India, Kolkata, New Delhi, other places I've been to, Cambodia, some of these places are pretty cheap. Like, life is cheap, right? And that is is a representative of what even Western life would look like just in 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. Daily survival there. Burn your trash. Get a 50-gallon metal drum. For burning if you don't have the land. Yeah, good one. Burning your trash is a good way to do it. It could be a good way to heating up your water at the same time. Yeah, so neighbours and family come knocking. Was that you? Was that you, Carolyn, making reference to go knocking on knocking on Urban's door? Too far from to seek you out, because they're both in Australia. That's the, day 14 is the complete chaos and desperation, and you're going to need to, people are getting so desperate, even in a lockdown, they're just going to be wanting to roam around and wander around. So, just as a reminder, because we're coming towards the end of some of the slides, just not the end, but with the last few slides here, these are important. So the considerations, don't forget. We need to bear in mind that depending on your situation, your local laws, your local crime levels and culture there, where you are and your property, where your property is, how big it is, whether you've even got room, as Daily Survival said there, to even have massive trash cans you can burn, whether you've got space to have water barrels in your garden and things to store water. We talked about that at depth last week, so please don't miss last week's show. So do bear in mind, all of the things we're talking about today are going to have a different effect on you depending on, all of these different factors and metrics. Budget and financial means as well is important to people, because if they can't, But you don't, for 2 weeks, let's say, grid down scenario, if you refer to last week's show, you'll see what that actually looks like in terms of preps. So what have we covered then? Please do hit the like button if you've learned something today, or you feel my efforts will have helped others to learn. Thank you for your support. It's the only way we can stay growing here. So please do share on social media if you think this is important for your friends and family to learn from as well, just to give them a sense of urgency as to just what could happen with a grid down scenario and how dangerous it is, right? How much of a disaster it truly is, because this is the point of doing this show for you, is so that you can start thinking things through in your environment, right? So we looked at why we should prepare them with all the different things that are affecting us with the JIT system, with the reliance on tech, with all the things that we looked at there that are making us even more vulnerable today than we ever have been before to one of these scenarios. We looked at the unique individual considerations of where you are, your environment. Of course, a grid down scenario is going to mean a lot more to somebody who's in the Arctic Circle, who's going to struggle to heat themselves. Equally, all your AC, all your air conditioning is going to be a problem if you're living in the desert. And cheers, AJ. Shout out to AJ, who's listening and watching tonight. And what a superstar. Sandy's always talking about you, my man. It's lovely to see you guys together enjoying the show. So protecting devices from a surge. We talked about the things that you first need to do as soon as the power goes down. You need to be making sure that you protect it from when it comes back on, so you don't take out all of your equipment. You have to assume the possibility that it's a preemptive shutdown because of something bigger coming, like an EMP. So we looked at the considerations for that. And the methods to increase your life of batteries. We talked about all the things that you can do on your mobile phone so that you can actually make sure your mobile phone will last longer. Do bear in mind when the cell tower stops working, your mobile phone will go to maximum transmission power and just drain itself right down. So do deactivate everything on your phone, put it in airplane mode, buy yourself some time with your batteries, right? Increasing your longevity of fridge and freezer goods. We looked at that, ways you can do it. Putting bottles of water inside your freezer now today. If you've got space in there, that will store a lot more thermal energy in those bottles. And as it starts to thaw out, it'll be that water that starts to thaw out and transfer that energy away from that heat out of your meat, right? So we looked at that. Things like taping down your fridge lids, taping tight your fridge doors. Just with a bit of duct tape, you can just take it off, open it, put it back again when you take something out. You need to maybe make somebody in your house responsible for getting things in and out of the fridge. And you need to have new rules put out to all your kids and all your family members, and no just opening the fridge. If somebody wants something out of the fridge, they come and ask me first, and that person is responsible for being quick. Yeah. Same with the freezer. So we looked at that. And we did some analysis, obviously, of the incremental failures that we see. Day 1, day 2, we looked at all of those different failures. Was the traffic lights, it's things like the JIT system failing because of the cash machines, all the internet down, so there's no transfer of any data between warehouses, distribution centers, stores, shops, and everything else, right? So just that incremental failure is what gets people, yeah? While they're dealing with one failure, they're not realizing the next one's about to happen. They haven't even finished dealing with the last one yet. It's the cascade of failure that gets people, yeah? And of course, we had multiple examples of that escalation of failure and the speed at which society breaks down because fridge manager, exactly, Pers. Fridge manager is what you need, right? So here we go. Danger Bob saying an outdoor brick setup for burning could be stove and garbage burn. Got to think about that. Yeah, nice one. We'll have to do a show about that. So here we go then on a debrief. The objectives were to gain a better understanding of the number and seriousness of threats associated with a complete grid down scenario. I think we've definitely got a good understanding of the threats because it's way more than people think, right? Especially just the idea there's no paramedics, there's no ambulances, there's no hospital, there's no fire, there's no police, no one's coming to your rescue, you can't call anyone, you can't speak to anyone, you can't look anything up. Right? There's no internet. So, help to guide your blackout preparations more effectively based on newly discovered threats. So I'm hoping that you've learned some of the things here today and had some insights and maybe some things that you'd been missing in your preparations for a grid down scenario that maybe I've shown you here that today that helped you maybe think, that's a good point, maybe I should get this, maybe I should shore up, like Danger Bob there talking about his idea, getting something together for just even burning garbage, right? Just burning your garbage, your rubbish and things, having somewhere to do that, things like this are good to think through, yeah, and these are problems that will happen. Ensure we're getting the most survival juice out of our prepping squeeze, exactly. So I think, so the grid down scenario, that has been the grid down scenario, a disaster per timeline. I hope you've enjoyed this episode too. And of course, last week we had the advanced principles of prepping. If you haven't seen that yet, absolutely must watch. Link is in the description. Watch that next.